So I want to talk to the folks out there who feel like they've been putting in the work, but the results just aren't showing up yet. I mean, maybe you're submitting cues and getting returns, or maybe you're chasing forwards that go nowhere, and maybe you're starting to wonder, am I even cut out for this? Well, if that's you, I promise you, you are not alone. And today's episode is going to speak directly to that feeling because I'm joined by Michael Reschke, who is a drummer, composer, veteran, and family member who, along with his wife Yuka, has faced all of these same questions, and I mean all of them. They were writing cues and getting forwards, but, not hearing anything back. They were working super hard, doing their best, doing everything that they should be doing, but still getting stuck. Does this sound familiar? Well, here's the thing though. They didn't give up. They found their tribe, they refined their workflow, and they kept going. And now? Well, now they're getting real placements on real TV shows from Blue Bloods to March Madness. So today, we're going to talk about what changed for them, how they balance working together as a team, and what they've learned about pushing through the hard parts. Because if you're feeling discouraged, I promise you, this episode is exactly what you need to hear. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Kropf, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, where each week we talk about all things production and library music. So whether you're just starting out or already seeing your cues on TV, I promise you, you are in the right place. Today's episode, as always, is made possible thanks to the support of the member subscribers of 52 Cues, who are composers just like you, working to write better cues and find success in the sync music industry. And 52 Cues is there to help make that happen with live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, and a ton more. So if you're curious about joining, you could head over to 52cues.com or just stick around because I'm going to be talking more about that a little bit later in today's episode. Speaking of today's episode, I recently had the chance to sit down with 52 Cues family member Michael Reschke, and we talked about perseverance, partnership, and what it takes to really stay in the sync game when the going gets tough. Plus, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on an emotional cinematic cue from 52 Cues member Simon Armitage. But first, what have I been working on lately? Well, I am continuing my year of collaboration. And I think a few weeks ago, I played a collab that I did with Jeff LaPlante. Well, I am back working with Jeff LaPlante, who has an amazing kind of pop sensibility, and he does vocal chops really amazing well, but turns out he's a very good guitarist and bass player. And we brought into the fold and onto the team a person who is an expert in orchestration and amazing kind of harmonic dexterity. And so we bring in Jeff Hargrove. So it's Jeff, and Dave, and we collaborated on a cue called Rocktimus Prime, which is an epic rock cue which features Jeff LaPlante on guitars and synths, Jeff Hargrove on orchestration, and me on drums and percussion. So here is Rocktimus Prime featuring my drum set parts performed right over there on the Simmons SD1250 electronic drum kit using Addictive Drums. So that was Rocktimus Prime. I got to tell you, I really enjoy writing these drum parts. And hey, if you're watching this, this is my year of collaboration. And if you need rock drums or jazz drums or funk drums, then hit me up. Please let me know. I've been really enjoying getting onto that electronic kit and digging deep into like Addictive Drums 2. And so yeah. And again, a huge thanks to Jeff LaPlante and Jeff Hargrove. We're planning on doing a whole album of these things, and I am so looking forward to doing more. For you family and friends subscribers, if you want to see a complete breakdown of Rocktimus Prime, be sure to tune in because that's going to be showing up as a Q breakdown a little bit later. So for today, when we think about what it takes to succeed in the production music industry, we often focus on, like technical skills and the mixing and orchestration and genre chops and all of that. But honestly, so much of this journey and how to be successful comes down to persistence, just showing up. Even when it feels like you're not making progress, even when it feels like you're doing everything right and still not seeing the results. And that's exactly where Michael and Yuka Reschke found themselves. They were writing their cues, they were submitting to their listings, they were doing all the right things, but still hitting a wall. So today, we're going to be talking about how they pushed through that, what changed for them, and how they found a workflow that actually worked. Like how their creative partnership not only strengthened their music, but helped them find their lane in the sync music industry. I am so thrilled to be sitting down with Michael Reschke, who's a composer, a producer, and a drummer who has a background in percussion, and he is an Air Force vet, spent several years performing professionally around the world, including Japan, before he finally earned his bachelor's degree in music production from Full Sail University. Now, these days, he's based out of Florida, where he composes and teaches drums and percussion lessons, but he writes alongside his wife, Yuka, who's a pianist and a composer, and together they've built a pretty unique sound that blends rhythm and melody across multiple genres. So today, we're going to talk about his journey into production music, what it's like collaborating with a spouse, how you kind of balance the creative minds at work, and how he and Yuka have really navigated the ups and downs of the production music industry. Michael, it is so good to be with you today. Thanks for joining us, man.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be on your podcast. I've been a huge fan. I've probably seen every podcast you've done, so this is very exciting.
Now, did you follow me back in the Drummer Talk days? Did you ever get hip to that? It's been a minute.
I saw some of your videos, but I really didn't start really following you till it was more of the podcast stuff,
right on.
More of the sync music.
Very cool. Well, very cool. Well, I want to start off with, first of all, I really enjoy working with you and Yuka, and I wanted to bring you on the podcast because I think that you guys have a story that is going to be really, really familiar to folks out there, namely putting yourself out there, trying, kind of hitting the wall, and then feeling like, man, do I even need to do this? And should we be doing this? But before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit about your journey to production music. How did you end up from the Air Force and now you are, living in Florida? But tell us a little bit about yours and Yuka's journey.
Well, I was very fortunate to meet Yuka when I was stationed in Japan. I was actually going to a band audition with somebody who ended up being her friend, who actually was the band leader I was auditioning for. So I actually met her at the audition. However, I was so set on doing the music thing, I didn't really chat too much, but we stayed in touch, and then we really realized how compatible we are with each other, because she's a huge music fan like me. So we really hit it off, and then popped the question. We decided to get married, and then my time in Japan ended, and we ended up here in the panhandle of Florida in Navarre. and I retired in 2008. And before that, I happened to go to one of the local music stores. They had a drum clinic, and I just started chatting with one of the salespeople, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for drum teachers." And I said, "Yeah, I teach." And he's literally said, "When can you start?" So I was like, "Okay, sure, I'll do this." And I've been teaching at that same store for over 19 years.
Wow.
I teach over 40 students a week, ages ranging from 5 to 68 years old.
Wow.
And I absolutely love teaching.
Well, bless you. We've talked about this, and there came a point where I was like, teaching drum set lessons just don't have it in me anymore. And so I wish I could go back in time. Well, I wish I knew you at that time, because I
Right.
totally would have talk to Mike, man. He can actually take much better care of you. And I follow you like on Instagram and all that stuff. And
Very nice.
I find myself getting inspired by what you're doing on the drum set, right? You're so,
you.
it's really interesting. You're wearing a Rush shirt right now, because you remind me of Neil Peart, who doesn't have how to say this. It's like you look at John Bonham and he's just like all, blah, blah, blah. But if you
Right.
look at Neil Peart, he is so focused and disciplined, and he is such an obvious student of the craft. Now, that's not saying John Bonham isn't a student,
Absolutely.
but I see echoes of Neil, if I may call him Neil, in you, in your playing, in your drum set setup. So I think it's very appropriate that you're rocking the Rush shirt right now.
No, absolutely. Neil Peart from Rush is actually the reason I wanted to really get into drum set and be the best I can be, and he's been an inspiration since.
Wow. Are we the same person? Because I remember where I was in 7th grade, and I heard YYZ live off of the Exit Stage Left album. And I'm
Great
like,
album.
oh, I want to be like this guy. Did you have that? So do you remember what Rush song it was that kind of unlocked for you?
Oh, it was Spirit of Radio. Being from Detroit, we have a lot of great stations, and we had one great rock station, and they always played the best stuff. And just one day I was sitting at home and had the radio on, and Spirit of Radio came on, and it was just like something just grabbed me by the shirt and said, "Listen, this is going to be you if you put the time and effort in." So I got so hooked on that. I mean, I'm like yourself. You talked about being a band nerd. I started band in 5th grade. Did it in junior high and high school. I did the marching, the jazz, the symphonic. I did every aspect of it. But luckily, being in the military and being stationed in some great places, especially Japan, I have a type of job. I was a carpenter where I worked pretty much during the day and had weekends off. So I was in like 5 different bands while I was stationed here. So it was an absolute blast for music. And Japan is just the greatest place for music.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no great mystery why especially jazz artists will spend time in Japan, because
Absolutely.
the Japanese people just really, really love American music. Now, in those bands you were playing at, were they like cover bands, or were you doing American music, or did you even try to kind of dabble into Japanese music or anything like that?
Well, when I was there, I was in a bunch of cover bands doing pop and rock, but I was also in a Dream Theater cover band, and that was the most fun. That was the funnest music to do, but made very little money. But the cover band I was in, I was making quite a bit of money, but I loved every aspect of it.
Yeah,
But the Japanese absolutely love music.
Yeah, it turns
Doesn't
out
matter the style.
people want to pay more money for Wild Cherry, play that funky music White Boy, than they do Mike Portnoy. So you pulled off all those Dream Theater covers? That's a workout, brother.
It was, and as you can see, I have a pretty large setup, and I took advantage of that in Japan and had an absolute blast doing that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No Rush cover bands in your past?
A couple buddies that I played with when I first started, we did the whole Rush thing. We play Spirit of Radio, Tom Sawyer, Limelight.
Subdivisions, all that stuff.
Yes,
Yep.
we so loved Rush, and they got their start in the Midwest. So
Yeah.
I know Detroit really embraced them, and I was fortunate to see them 3 times in the '80s, and it was an absolute incredible concert.
Yeah, that is awesome. Now I know Yuka is there. She's not on camera.
Right.
She is there, and I know that you guys work pretty closely together. And again, I feel like you and Yuka are just like me and Shannon from a parallel universe. You know, there are so many similarities, including working with your spouse. So, you know, you write with Yuka. How did that start, and how do you make sure that, you know, your workflow is ironed out, and like, how do you divide up the work, and do you approach different types of cues differently? I mean, so tell us about that writing and collaboration process with a spouse who you can't exactly, you know, you can't exactly like cut them out of your life. You can't gray rock
No.
your spouse
No.
and stop answering. You can't ghost your spouse.
No, because I went into the military, I wanted to get some money for college. So I got the GI Bill, and about 6, 7 years ago, I needed to use the money before I would have lost it. So I decided to go to Full Sail for the music production program, which I absolutely had a blast doing. And then I had you for one of my classes for production music, and you just turned a light on for me about production music. And I thought it was the coolest thing. Like, I remember we wrote music to a Honda commercial, and we did a Walmart commercial, but we were doing hip hop, we were doing orchestral.
Yep, EDM and that kind of stuff.
EDM.
Yep.
Oh, it was so much fun. And Yuka would like kind of watch some of the live streams or the archived videos, and she would kind of answer questions for me. But then once I graduated, I saw you interview Mike Lasco from Taxi. So we decided to join because I really respected you as a drummer and as my professor. So we decided to join Taxi, and we made a great go of it. I mean, we had bunches of forwards in that, and then we did get a final one that actually got into a library. But the way we work is she's the brains of the outfit. So she, like, when it comes to something that's like hip hop, she's great with the melody and the counter melody. And she has the ears that I don't do. I mean, it's like when we do our percussion cues. Yes, I'm a drummer and a percussionist, but Yuka's the one that really comes up with all the ear candy. Because being a drummer, I'm thinking nothing but rhythm. Where with her, she sees rhythm as a melodic type instrument. So she always comes up with these really cool parts that I sit there and scratch my head. I'm like, how'd you do that? And it just ends up making the cue sound so much better. But when we do work together, we're usually, I mean, this studio is just bedroom in my house. I have a chair over here, and I'm sitting here while she's working, and she'll like do a line, and then she's like, fix it. So I'll jump up, fix any MIDI, mix it real quick, and then we change places, and then she just goes back to doing her thing.
Right.
But that's how we've done anything from day one, and it works really, really well, because, I mean, my lane is percussion, mixing, mastering. Hers is melody, ear candy, counter melody. She just hears things I don't.
Yeah.
So that's what makes us a great pair.
Yeah, I know when Shannon and I started cranking up 52 Qs, one of the things that unlocked things for us was making sure that we kind of divided up the work, and we call them yards. Like, this is your yard and this is my yard. Now, in the past, you know, she's a music director, and she's, you know, always kind of been the boss, right? And so if she says, Dave, I need you to cut off here, and nope, we're not going to do that. That's a good idea, but no. And so it's always been kind of a one-way type of a communicate, which is fine. The music director is the boss. They get to call the shots. But with 52 Qs, it's much more of a partnership. And we've tried to do what you and Yuka are doing, which is creative, you know, be creative together. And we haven't found a way to make that work. I'm excited to do it because she's a super gifted pianist, just like Yuka. Again, just parallel universe versions of ourselves, right? You're our variants. But it wasn't until like Shannon handles like metadata. She handles all the graphic design stuff. She handles like the email marketing and everything. And I handle like the YouTube and the face-to-face and doing the mentoring sessions. But it wasn't until we figured out how to stay in our yards that and when we can look over the fence and that kind of thing. Do you have really clearly defined kind of roles like that, or is it a little bit more fluid?
I think there's a lot of fluidity with us because, I mean, I'm not very good with melody and whatnot, but sometimes she'll like try a melodic thing and she'll A/B it with me, like, which one do you like? So we do a lot of that. But we try to be as fluid as possible. I mean, there's always times where I like what I put and she doesn't like it, but that's like any composing team. But I always give it up to her because she's the ones that just sees beyond what really is going on. I mean, because everything that we've had as far as our success, I give all the credit to her.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have cracked the code. Right now, Shannon and I are really more in kind of a, if we were a songwriting duo, like she would be lyrics and I would be music. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we both kind of stay in our lanes. But I want to circle back to something you mentioned. You mentioned Taxi. And, I'm a big fan of Taxi. We talk about Taxi, and we have talked about Taxi, and they loom really large in this sync space. But I know that you had a rough go of it early. I felt like when we first started, before you joined the family and everything, we would do one-on-one sessions, and there were some pretty low lows where you were kind of getting ground down. Can you talk about your process in staying motivated, staying forward thinking, and putting one foot in front of the other while you were either getting returns or things were going up to the libraries, getting forwarded, but you didn't get anything back? Can you talk about that process? Because I am sure many of our listeners are exactly where you guys were.
Yeah, we really loved being part of Taxi. We loved the briefs and that. But at times it just got a little frustrating because we get a forward and we really wouldn't get any kind of notification from whatever library the brief was for. But I give Taxi a lot of credit too, because it really helped shape how we write cues and whatnot. And I mean, I really loved everything we learned through Taxi. So it got frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, when you would get a feedback and you're hoping it would be a little more detail so that you could do a better job. Because I'm all about feedback. I mean, I teach drums and percussion, but I also welcome feedback. So just like when I was going to school for like your class, I mean, you gave us phenomenal feedback and it made us better. But it was just, I just wish there was more information that we could get. But I mean, Taxi's been around literally forever, and it's an awesome platform.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they've got a lot of really good things going on here. But I remember some Zoom sessions, and my advice to you was, you know what, guys, sometimes you just need to kind of make your own wins. And that's when you released an album like of meditation music. What were those some of the types of milestones that kind of buoyed you? Was it the pocket of air, as you felt like you were drowning? What do you think?
Yeah, it did help because, we sat down and wrote several tracks for a meditation album just to kind of, I guess, cleanse our palate. And then I just remember we had a lesson with you, and yes, we were talking about some of our frustration. Then you said, "Hey, why don't you try the family for a month and see what you think?" So we did, and Yuka and I absolutely fell in love with it because we had more there, and the community that you have at 52 Qs is incredible. We've made a lot of great friends, and I mean, and hoping to do lots of collaborations with them in the future. So
yeah, and you guys are killing it. And I have to say, both of your work ethic is like a perfect example of how this works, because you don't necessarily get it right every single time, and neither do I. But you are submitting things for feedback. you're bringing them to our weekly sessions, or you're booking a session, and then there's some back and forth, and then through the briefing room and the multiple rounds and everything. I mean, you guys are doing the work, and I think is a fantastic example and a fantastic a success story, because I mean, your music has been, well, I'll let you. What are some of the big milestones that kind of stand out? Some placements that you've gotten.
Well, our first actual placements was during last year's March Madness. We had a couple great placements with that. We've also had placements in the Netherlands, Germany. We've had tracks on Moonshiners, Master Distiller, Deadliest Case Files, Blue Bloods. I mean, just lots of stuff like that.
And do you find that those wins really like are water to the thirsty, just really kind of buoying your spirits as you go?
Oh, absolutely. It's great when we pull up TuneSat or Track and see, oh, we got another one this week. It kind of keeps that fire burning pretty nice, that it's like, okay, let's move on to the next thing, which, I mean, I work full time, so I'm writing music in pockets of time. Like I'll write in the morning sometimes, and I'll write a few hours at night, because we're not at a level yet where we could do it full time, but we find a way to shoehorn time to work on music.
Yeah.
And Yuka's also phenomenal at doing a lot of administrative stuff and research. I mean, she does lots of research for other folks in the community. So
she's super faithful about like coming to office hours or coming to feedback sessions, even when you're not able to. So she's super faithful. And again, it's proof, man. It's proof that you're doing the work. And while it's not always, sunshine and roses the whole time, there are moments where motivation wanes, but the progress, not just as a composer and not just your placements, but just in your confidence, is every time I listen to one of your cues, it just gets better and better, and you're doing it. So do you have any advice if somebody's listening or watching right now and they are struggling with that kind of that self-doubt, and they're feeling like, oh man, I'm hitting my wall, hitting my head against the wall at Taxi, or I'm keep getting, how did you guys, what kept you motivated through those times?
Well, I think the biggest thing was just becoming part of the 52 Qs family, because there's so many great folks that just were very, very friendly, and they would reach out. I mean, they kept us motivated. And I mean, we've become close with quite a few of them. And like a lot of times Yuka will text them, hey, I got a question about this. And they write right back. And it's just the community that you've built at 52 Qs that just keeps us motivated, and it keeps pushing us. Plus, I mean, your guidance has always been incredible. You've never let us down. I mean, the more we do this, the more we want to do this. But the biggest thing is just don't give up. I mean, or find a tribe. And Yuka and I found our tribe here at 52 Qs.
Yeah. You say that I did this, or me and Shannon did this, but all we can do is kind of establish a framework based on like, based on kind of four things, right? This is something that me and Shannon we're just recently talking about that I'm sure will be its own episode. But focusing on industry kind of experience and industry knowledge, along with musicianship and musicality, and having a high bar for that. Also focusing on education and how can we teach people to do this. But the fourth aspect is empathy, compassion, and generosity. Those things
Absolutely.
that we just kind of set up. And I can't make like Jeff Hargrove answer Yuka's text. It's nowhere in the curriculum. It's nowhere in any kind of agreement. But that's what happens because we all kind of come together. And I don't mean to turn this into a commercial for 52 Keys, but you are watching the 52 Keys channel. we've just set up a space that allows this to happen. And by attracting generous, educated, industry-minded, compassionate, amazing musicians, people,
Absolutely.
then it all feeds on itself. And so you guys are perfect examples of that. And it makes my heart leap with joy to know that all of this is happening, and it's not me. Like, there's no syllabus that outlines, there's no rubric
No,
that says, here's how you
no.
make it. It is attracting the right people by being the right people. And so,
Absolutely. And that's why we'll stay with 52 Qs forever, because I found no better place. I mean, I've looked, but 52 Qs just, it fills that space.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, with the successes we've had and the successes we're looking forward to in the future, we know we can definitely do it through 52 Qs, and it's just an
I would be
awesome thing.
remiss also if I did not mention this guy. Boop. Yep. Yeah. If you're listening to the podcast, this is a Funko of me. And it has the guy has headphones, and of course he's eating a cheeseburger, because I do like me some cheeseburgers. Guys, I can't. This has a place of honor in my studio. It is literally right there. You can see it in the side shots, and like knowing that you guys like hand painted the white glass.
Yep.
Guy, this is. Yeah, I'm speechless. I'm so thankful, and I think it speaks to that. And he's my little mini Dave, man, and he's chilling, and I freaking love him. Thank you guys so much for sending that along.
No problem. Absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Awesome. Okay, so it does beg the question. You guys got a lot going on. You teach full time. We've got like briefs and all these things all flowing around. How do you balance it, man? How do you balance everything? Like what are your time management strategies that help you stay productive?
Just I try to stick to a calendar. Yuka teaches as well, but she works from home, so she's got a little more flexibility. But I myself have to kind of like, okay, at this period of time, I need to do this. But I do try to make time to do something other than music. I mean, teaching and playing drums all day, and then several hours of writing sick music. I need something else. And for me, I like to play video games, but I'm lucky to get maybe 2 hours a month. But it's something different. It's nothing that does with music, and it's kind of a getaway. I also love to read, and that's another thing. And like Yuka, she talks with her family, and we do a lot of things together. So we try to do as much as we can to not go crazy.
Yeah. By the way, do you have any book recommendations? Is like fiction or nonfiction or?
One of my favorites is I like a guy by the name of Dan Martell. It's called Buy Back Your Time, where it's better to economize your time so you'll have more money later on. And
I totally put you on the spot. I didn't say I was going to ask you this.
No, that's all right. The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield.
Yep.
That's one I'm going to dig into probably next month or two. Well, my mode of transportation for that is Audible, so I'll be listening to that probably next month.
Yep. Yeah. That's I listen to that at least once a year. It is a treatise on how to deal with resistance, and it'll kind of kick your butt, because it forces you to kind of answer some tough questions. So like if you could go back in time, and talk to the Reschkes of 2020 or even earlier, would you give yourself any advice, or what would you do differently if you could kind of go back in time?
Write a lot more music. I mean, we wrote pretty good, but we just didn't have the urgency like we do with the briefs we get, because it's like, okay, we've got round one due in 2 weeks, so we know we got 2 weeks to get that done, and then round two, and then deliverables are this week. just write more, study more. I mean, I try to study as much as I can on everything sync, mix, mastering. I mean, Yuka's always watching different podcasts. I mean, shout out to Jeff Hargrove. We love his podcast.
Yep.
Of course, we love your podcast, but just trying to absorb all we can. And
Yeah, I don't think it's any real accident that we have several members of the community who have kind of spun up their own YouTube channel.
oh, absolutely.
I think of Jeff Hargrove. I think of Dex. Dex has
That's a great one.
Yep, and so that's awesome. That is awesome. So any exciting project, any exciting briefs that you guys are working on right now? Like where are you in the weeds right now?
Well, we're working on our third epic percussion album for a library we work with out of England. So we're down to the last few tracks. It's been a lot of work. I mean, this is our third album, so we've done probably maybe 16 tracks so far, and this is going to be another 10. So we've done a lot, and then I'm also going to work on a few drumline cues. Just I want to kind of have those on the back burner. So that's pretty much what we have going on, other than the couple of briefs we're dealing with right now in 52 cues.
Right. Now, it was the percussion brief that kind of unlocked. Like that was the cue that kind of popped the or in my mind, it's just like there's something just kind of like damming up the waters, and it was a percussion cue that allowed the first kind of trickle of water to get over the dam here, right? Wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was because we'd written one percussion cue for Taxi about, I think, 4 or 5 months earlier. We got it forward, but we didn't hear anything. And then the next time they had the percussion one, we wrote for it because we're getting pretty good at these. So we sent it in, and next thing you know, we got it forward, and we thought, okay, maybe we'll hear something in a week or two. It was literally 18 hours later, we got an email from the library owner like, hey, love this stuff. I want an album. Let's go. So that really lit the fire, and it's like, okay, I think we can really do this. So Yuka and I threw ourselves into that, and we just got that album out, and the library really likes what we do. And then he was talking, he sent us a message, and he was like, I know you do percussion. Do you do any drumline? I said, yeah, I do. So I sent him one that I'd used for Taxi, and he's like, hey, love this stuff. Can you give me 4 more? So I wrote drumline tracks for him, and I've got 2 albums out through that library. So,
but now you've since branched off, and it makes sense. I mean, it's so obvious when you look back on it. Of course, I mean, you're a percussionist, you're a lifelong drummer, and so it makes sense that be kind of the gateway into this. But you guys aren't afraid to try things new. You know, I know. I feel like just this past during the last the briefing room brief, you guys took a swing at something new. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like last year when you had Anthony Clint on the podcast, we decided to try to write a hip hop cue, it was our first, and Clint said it wasn't that bad. So we've also done pretty well with hip hop cues, because that's the cues we've had in March Madness and the NFL this past football season. So I mean, and we've done some tension, and like we've done trailers with you. I mean, we're not afraid to try anything as long as we can do it within our wheelhouse. Like, we'd love to do our orchestral stuff, but we just don't have all of those skills for all that instrumentation.
Yeah.
But we will try anything.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something that 52 Cues kind of affords. You know what I mean? So even whether it's a briefing room brief or whether it's submitting stuff up for, feedback or whatever, it's relatively low risk. You're not out like $5 or, the fact that the briefing room has revision rounds and that kind of thing.
Right.
And you bring things either to a private Zoom session or you bring it to our weekly feedback. You guys, again, you're putting in the work, and it's not a coincidence that you guys are getting the success
Appreciate that.
that you guys have earned. It's always, an uphill climb, and that's true of anybody in this industry. Nobody
Oh,
like
yeah.
reaches the
Oh,
top
yeah.
and says, "Okay, libraries, you'll take anything and it'll all get on air." That's not
Right.
been my experience,
No.
but you guys are absolutely doing the reps. You're putting in the work, and I love that you're fearless and you'll try something. And I've seen you work with other composers to kind of
Oh, yeah.
shore up some of those gaps. Talk about how the process has been for you guys collaborating with other composers when you're already a collaboration team in and of yourself.
Well, it's with collaborations, it's just been out of a need, of course. Like, we were doing a cue last year. I think it was for the PGA, and it was kind of a pop rock thing. And of course, we tried our hand at MIDI guitar, and we know you do not like those.
No, my
And
publisher doesn't like them.
yes, yeah, you're right. But and you suggested a few of our folks in 52 that play guitar. So we reached out to Michael Yuka and said, "Hey, would you be willing to do a little bit of guitar for us? We'd really appreciate it because we're kind of stuck. We really can't turn this thing in." And he literally said, "Sure." And because he's overseas in Switzerland, so he's 7 or 8 hours ahead of us, literally the next morning when I woke up, we had the tracks.
Wow.
And they were excellent. And he even gave us some mix tweaks, which just made the track even better. So that collaboration was incredible. And then this past Christmas, Craig Gilroy reached out to me, wanting me to play electronic drums on a Christmas cue that we were doing for CBS Sports, and that was an absolute blast.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like all double kick and all that stuff. Yeah, you got to know.
Yeah, there was a little bit.
Yeah, knowing that you've covered Mike Portnoy, I see it now. I see it now. I don't think I knew you were in a Dream Theater cover band, but it's so obvious now. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
I dusted off. I've got a 23-year-old electronic drum kit that I bought when I was in Japan, but thanks to libraries like Superior Drummer, I made it sound like a $5,000 drum workshop kit. But it was just fun. I did that thing in a few takes, and Craig was like, "Oh, this is incredible." And I hope to do more with it. I mean, I'm going to be upgrading drums, and I hope I can be of service to the community or anybody else that
I'm not going to
needs
lie,
drums.
brother, that hearing your drum parts on that collab with Craig inspired me. I'm like, okay, Dave,
That's awesome.
I know you're not a gigging drummer anymore, and
No.
I know you're not you don't teach drums anymore, but you are still a drummer. What are you doing not drumming? Well, why are you like trying to do all finger drums when there's proof literally staring you in the face of what it looks like? So I credit you for me getting an electronic kit because
really appreciate that.
you showed like, oh, this is the difference. Because I mean, I've heard your drum programming before. It's fine, but I would say you are a better drum performer
Right.
than you are like a drum programmer. And I think that's true of most drummers, especially like lifelong career drummers and I found that out. I am a better physical drummer than I am a drum programmer. It's more natural. All of the subtleties and the nuances that are baked into 45 years of playing the same instrument, right?
Absolutely.
40. Okay, I'm not
Absolutely.
that old. We'll say 35 years.
That sounds good.
But yeah, dude, that. So had I a hat, I would be tipping it right now because
I
seeing
appreciate that.
you just crush that gave me the confidence to say, okay, this is how it's done.
Well, the beautiful thing is electronic drum technology is made leaps and bounds. I mean, I still have a 1988 Simmons SDS9, the big stop sign pad kit that I bought. It's still sitting in my garage, and it's like hitting
Practice pads.
a tablecloth on a counter. It is so hard. It's not forgiving. But electronic drums today, even electronic drums that are under $1,000, the sensitivity is incredible, which is perfect for like what you're doing with the new kit you got. You're able to just, and like you just mentioned, you're so much better as being a playing drummer, and you could do your takes in 1 or 2 or 3 takes.
Yep. Yep. And it's not necessarily like easier because it's its own other bag of issues, MIDI
Right.
mapping and velocities and everything. And you have to go in there and edit. But the end result is like leaps and bounds better than finger
Oh, yeah.
drumming.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do what's necessary. I mean, I have a little Akai finger pad thing that I'll do some stuff on. But yeah, if I can do it on the E drums, absolutely,
Yeah,
because I may have to go in and just change a tiny bit of the MIDI data, but it's still my performance.
that's right. And that's the key. It captures a human performance
Right.
in a way that finger drumming doesn't. For
Right.
me, I will go to the electronic kit if what I am programming needs to sound like a human being performed it. Like hip hop drums, not necessarily. They
Right.
sound sampled and programmed and edited or whatever. But if it's a funk tune or a rock tune, like all of my rock cues are going to be on that.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, yeah, you, my friend, were the
Thank you.
catalyst that made me go and drop some coin on a kit. And I have the Simmons SD 1250, which you would be interested to know that the brain for that has all of the classic Simmons sound. They got all of the old school Simmons samples
That is cool.
and then loaded it into the drum brain. So I technically, if I wanted to wire the audio out of that, I could use it as the same Simmons drum kit that you have in your garage, and it's just
Right.
all the same samples.
Absolutely.
Yep,
I mean, that just goes to show all the advances in technology. It's incredible. I mean, it makes our jobs as drummers so much better because I was around when MIDI started and when the drum machines came on the scene, and all the drummers were like, "Oh my gosh!" I embraced it. I mean, I still have it, an old Roland 727 drum machine that I just love trying to program just because. And then I got into samplers back in the late 80s too, because I love music synthesis as it was called back then. So
Yeah.
I'm all about technology, but nowadays there's so much technology and it makes it so easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never been easier to get into this industry. It's never been easier to make really, really good music, which means that, the water level is rising. And so
Mhm.
all of the boats are raising, but it does mean that the bar is getting higher.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
finding your tribe, plugging into a
Mhm.
community, getting regular feedback, there's only so much you can get from like taking a course or watching
Mhm.
videos, which are fantastic. But I think, and 52 Qs is founded on the idea that feedback is what really unlocks the next level, and it's providing mentoring and coaching, and it's almost apprentice type of a relationship. And so,
Yeah, very true.
yeah, you
It's like
guys,
going to a vocational school.
yeah, it really is. I mean, it's no mystery that 52 Qs does what it does and Full Sail does what it does. And I have a foot in both worlds.
Right.
And so that's amazing. Well, I mean, what's next? What's on the horizon? And are there types of cues that you would really like to write?
We would like to get into some dramedy and more trailer stuff
Yeah.
because we really had fun writing that trailer for that cue last year. I mean, it was an absolute ton of work. I mean, we almost put in the same amount of time as a weekly full-time job, but we just like to try some new things that come down the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, I want to hear some of your cues. I would love for you to share with the audience, especially because they're success stories. You guys are like the poster children for keeping at it, staying positive, plugging into a tribe, and just not letting the grind kind of wear you down. What cue did you bring today that we could listen to?
One of them is epic percussion, Pump Up the Rhythm is a drumline one. So
okay, well let's take a listen to the drumline cue. Tell me the title again.
Pump Up the Rhythm.
All right. Well, here is "Pump Up the Rhythm" by Michael and Yuka Reschke. So that was "Pump Up the Rhythm." Mike, tell us a little bit about it.
It's a basic drumline cue. It was a request from a library. The sounds I'm using is from the library from Spitfire. It's Originals drumline, which is actually the Blue Devils drumline.
Wow,
Sounds
I don't think I
incredible.
knew that, man. That's awesome.
It sounds incredible. Spitfire did a great job with how they mapped the MIDI because it was real easy to do all the sounds and hopefully sound like a drum line.
Yeah, and that library isn't that expensive, is it? All the original stuff is pretty.
I think it's $29.
Dude. Yeah, because you can sprinkle those kind of things in like sports cues and either like
absolutely.
rock or hip hop or that's awesome. And yeah, so if you are watching this or if you're listening to this in the podcast, you obviously heard it, but we did show a video over there in the YouTube, and of course, as always, we'll have the link to the YouTube video in the podcast notes. Or if you're watching on video, you already know you saw it anyway. All right, so tell us about this other cue you brought along.
It is called Fast and the Curious. It's an epic percussion cue, and it's one that we've had quite a few placements with.
That's a killer title. All right, so here is the Fast and the Curious. So that was the Fast. Is it the Fast and the Curious? Fast and the Curious.
Fast and the Curious.
Fast and the Curious. Michael and Yuka, I know who's just out of frame. Thank you so much for joining me today, and a huge a huge congratulations on all your very well-earned success. I hope it's okay to say, I know we're kind of close to the same age, but I'm super proud of you guys, because I was there watching helplessly as I saw the motivation kind of draining out of you guys. And so to now be sitting here like a year later, we were absolutely on the upswing, and you're getting placements on TV. You're getting placements, in the same shows that I'm getting placements. And that is this whole thing working. And it's no coincidence. It is your hard work. It is your work ethic. It is your amazing attitude, your professionalism. We even just a couple of days ago, went back and forth, and I know that I frustrated you because I gave you some feedback on something that hit me different on it was a briefing room, and you're like, bro, why didn't you mention this before? I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it that time. And yet, you guys are just fantastic additions to the community, and I'm proud to have you among us. And so thank you so much for your support, and congratulations on all of your success.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate everything you and Shannon, and thanks to the awesome community. I mean, this was an absolute pleasure.
Once again, a huge thanks to Michael for joining me today on the podcast. And as per usual, we'll have links in the description for you to check out. So we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Longing, which is an emotional cinematic cue written by 52Q's community member, Simon Armitage. We'll be right back. Every week I talk about how this episode and the podcast and the community, the channel, would not be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbors, subscribers of 52Qs, who do pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. And in addition to being thriving members of the community, as well as supporting me and Shannon and everything that we're doing here, they also receive extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds and hundreds of hours of video archives, weekly Q breakdowns, production music almanac, living ebook, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. Now, it's free to join 52Qs. You can just go to 52qs.com and sign up, be a member of the community. We would love to have you. It will always be free to join the community. But if you've been watching, or if maybe this is your first time, but if you're wondering, is there a way to kind of level up my production music skills in the industry, meeting like-minded, super friendly, very generous composers? Then why don't you think about subscribing? Memberships start at around $4 a month, and we would love to have you. Again, that's 52qs.com. That was Longing by Simon Armitage. Simon, thank you so much for sending this along. I really do appreciate it. And he said that this is a cinematic, an emotional cinematic cue written for a taxi listing. And here is the listing. Looking for well-crafted cues with soft, intimate sound that captures emotions and draws you in. Companies looking for tracks that could work for heart-stopping scenes in TV and film, heartbreak, loss, feeling conflicted, or similar dramatic moments. Your submission should include tender motifs, tear-jerking melodies, beautiful musicianship, and growing arrangements with plenty of forward development as your piece progresses. Instrumentation, piano, strings, synth pad, ambient guitar, cinematic cymbal swells. Please be sure that all of your virtual instruments. All right, so 1.5 to 3 minutes, so we are good there. All right, so I think we're in really good shape here. First of all, the piano. I have a really low tolerance for like foofy piano. Like it's all super felty. And when I saw this come through, I was worried we were going to get an overly foofy piano, but I was very pleasantly surprised. I thought the piano work here was top notch, really, really well done. Do watch that cello entrance. The cello is a little off. Hear how it doesn't come in cleanly? Yeah, just a little suspect. And before I go any further, I do need to call you out on a couple of things, and only because these types of details really, really matter. And that is the submission guidelines for the community. When you submit up your cue, it asks for 24-bit 48K WAV files, okay, which I got in MP3. Also, the file name needed name, the title, the BPM, and the key. Now, I'm still gonna review your cue here, right? I'm happy to do that, but just know that when you're submitting up to a library, or you're submitting up to taxi or whatever, and they outline what you need to provide, whether it's the correct file or naming convention and all of that, then then all those little details matter, because the audition actually starts the moment they download your file, the moment they see it. And so if I were a library and taking in a ton of submissions, and if I saw a file that was the wrong format, that didn't have the titling correct, then I would immediately think to myself, maybe, attention to detail isn't as high of a priority. And please, nothing but love here. I just say this in the spirit of gentle correction, because you have to imagine a library getting like hundreds of submissions, and this could be the difference between not getting listened to and maybe getting published. So just some words of encouragement there, because I think we have a really, really solid cue here, and I would hate for execution issues or execution errors like title and format to keep you from getting the shot that you needed. I think we're in good shape here. I think maybe the rest of the strings come in a little too early. I would have appreciated just having the cello and the piano. The cello might be a little loud. If you're going to bring the rest of the strings, I would bring them in at the downbeat, because it feels a little weird. They kind of come in halfway through the second bar of the phrase. See, what we could do is wait until this phrase right here, and then bring the string pads under, or bring them in at the beginning of the phrase. So we'll just watch some of the phrasing. I do like how we went up the octave in the piano. I think that works out. Nice, subtle, subdued subdued cymbal swell there. Looking back at the brief, it mentions motifs. I wonder if there's not enough of a melody here. I felt like we got a little hint. Just I felt like that there might need to be a more of a this is the melody. Something like that. I would continue. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Doing a really good job, especially with the cello, of working the expression and the modulation so it feels like a real performance. I would be really careful because we have a cello, a solo cello. The cello looks like they are in orchestral stage position. And what I mean by this is it looks a little right heavy. Something to think about. Might want to just center up the cello a little bit. Probably would do less of the synth pad right there. You almost just want it to be just like I've used this analogy before, like cornstarch in the gravy, right? It's there just to kind of fill things out, but is not a primary flavor. You shouldn't taste cornstarch. Okay, like the suspended cymbal there, not sure about that drum hitting that impact. I wasn't sure if we were going to get into some more percussion. If we're doing that, then I think a much softer, much more delicate, more almost like a sonic boom, just a boom, would have brought some. You bring in some strings here. There doesn't seem to be much of a energetic level from here. Yeah, playing them back to back, I can feel it, but I feel like we need a little bit more motion through here, which we get to. You know what? Let's see. What's our length? 1.5 to 3 minutes? I wonder if we even need this. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Let's ditch this part. And let's see what happens if we go straight into what do you think? All right, so we're coming out of our breakdown here. The actual edit here is not that great. Let's see if I can't clean that up a little bit better. All right, just gonna line this up kind of like that. We'll do the crossfade. Well, I think part of the weirdness is we need, I think, a stronger jump, 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 jump. Yeah, because by this point, we've said what we needed to say. We've had. And I don't think we need another long kind of stretched out. I think we need a little bit more motion. Again, really nice. All right, I do think I would let that linger, let that linger, let that linger. And then we need one more. Ooh. Wrong. give them options. Give them the option to end on this kind of unresolved cadence, but still actually resolve it. So give them a little bit of, give them both. You can give them both, because this not ending on tonic could very well be a deal breaker. And I'm speaking from experience, because I had a cue that I had submitted, one of my first cues. In fact, the first cue I ever saw air with was one that I did something very, very similar to this. I ended on this unresolved plagal half cadence, right? So this longing 4 chord. And then the editor or the publisher came back and said, "Hey, Dave, you have to end on tonic." And so I gave him almost like a sarcastic, like, 1 chord, there's your tonic chord. And don't you know, that's the chord that they threw to commercial. So give them both. Give them both. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot going on or going right with this that just... that I would, like I said at the beginning, I'd hate for it to be undermined by just some submission parts. Just looking through, see if there's anything else that I wanted to say. No, I think, as always, thank you so much for sending this along. And yeah, all right. So Simon, really, really do appreciate you sending that along. And if you're watching this and you'd like to get your cue reviewed right here on the podcast, and you can submit this over at 52 Cues in the Composer Cafe, as well as the weekly feedback thread. In general, putting your cues up for feedback, it's a great way to get insights from your fellow composers, and you never know, might just feature it here on the podcast. But if you're looking for something more in-depth, I do offer 15-minute video reviews where I go through your cue, talk about what's working, and suggest ways to make it even stronger. And you can order one by going over to 52cues.com/feedback. But if you'd like to get this kind of feedback on the regular, we do this every single week for our family subscribers. But that's going to do it for me this week. You definitely want to tune in next week, because I'm going to be joined by several of the climbers who scaled the summit of Expedition 52 in 2024. That means that for these climbers, they wrote 1 cue per week and left feedback for one fellow climber every week for a full year. We're going to be talking about their experience, as well as listen to several of their cues. So you definitely want to tune in next week for that. But until then, I want to thank you for spending part of your day here with me. I know you got a ton of options out there, whether we're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio on the go. So the fact that you chose to hang out with me just for a bit really does mean a lot. And if you got a lot of value out of today's episode, the best way that you can pay it forward is to like and subscribe and leave a comment, because believe it or not, it really does help composers just like you find me. So I hope you've had an amazing week, and I know you're going to have an amazing week next week. Friends, how do I know that? Because I trust and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2025 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community, submitting your cue for review, or becoming a member subscriber of 52 Cues, head over to 52cues.com.